Okay, Assalamu alaikum guys. As you know that we have almost finished all the learning outcomes of unit 1.1 except the sixth one, in which we have to describe the functions of all the structures that we have done as far as the animal cell, plant cell and bacterial cells are concerned. So basically, if you have listened to all my previous lectures, you must have realized that whenever I have described the structure very briefly, I have also mentioned the functions of the respective organelles and parts of animal, plant, and bacterial cells. But just to reinforce the same learning outcome, which is learning outcome number 6, I will be very quickly going through the functions of the structures, and then we'll be moving on to Unit 1.2, which is specialized cells, tissues, and organs. Before I begin specialized cells, tissues, and organs, I will do learning outcome number 6. So let's start. If you remember last time, I had shared this table with you in which the description and the functions of different parts of a bacterial cell were discussed. So since we have done this already, so now I will be sharing a slide which shows you the functions of different animal organelles that we have done so far. So let's suppose if I start with cell membrane, you can see I have made a concept map, and with cell membrane I have written partially permeable. Again, I am going to reinforce this. It's a boundary of the cell which is partially permeable, which means that it allows certain substances to pass into the cell and stops other substances to pass, which means substances which are beneficial for the cell will be allowed inside, and substances which are not will not be allowed inside. Similarly, all those substances which are needed within the cells, they will be retained within the cell only, and they will not be allowed to leave the cell. So in such a manner, a cell membrane provides a very protective function for the cell. Moving on to cytoplasm, again, I would say it's a gel-like structure, which is the place where most of the chemical reactions take place. It is also the site of different kinds of organelles. So in a way, you can, remember that most organelles are floating in this gel-like liquid, and all chemical reactions are also taking place over here. Ribosome, the tiniest, very, very tiny organelles, which can only be seen through an electron microscope. They are the site of protein synthesis. So no ribosomes means no protein synthesis. Mitochondrion, the sausage-shaped organelles, which are a bit bigger than the ribosomes, they can be seen with a high quality light microscope, and of course the internal details can be seen with an electron microscope. These are those organelles which are the site of aerobic cellular respiration, which means it's a chemical reaction where energy is produced, okay? And energy is produced in the form of a molecule which is known as ATP. The details of ATP will be covered in A levels more than O levels, but basically for the time being, I can say it is the organelle where energy in the form of this molecule ATP is synthesized. Moving on to nucleus, a very essential part of the cell, and in the animal cell, it occupies more or less the center of the cell. It controls all the activities of the cell, including cell division, cell growth, repair of worn out parts, and protein synthesis as well, in a way, indirectly. And of course, the nucleus contains the molecule which all of us know, which is DNA, which is the molecule of heredity, which determines what you are. So an overview of the functions of different organelles found in the animal cell. Moving on to the functions of plant organelles. So if we, specifically talk about plants, then these are the 3 different organelles, or I can say parts of the plant cell, which are not found in the animal cell. Whereas the rest of the parts which we have done in the previous slide, namely the cytoplasm, cell membrane, nucleus, all these are also found in the plant cells, and they have the same function. So I will not be repeating them. I'll be only focusing on these 3 parts, which are the chloroplast, the sap vacuole, and the cellulose cell wall. The chloroplast is an organelle which is oval in shape, which is rich in the green coloring substance, which is known as the chlorophyll, whose function is to trap the sunlight so that it can carry out photosynthesis. So this means that no chloroplast means no photosynthesis can happen. And since plants are the only organisms which can make food or which can photosynthesize, so this organelle is specific. It's a distinctive feature of plants only. Moving on to the sap vacuole. The sap vacuole is actually the vacuole, the big vacuole, which is found in the plant cells, due to which the nucleus in the plant cells is pushed to one side. So this vacuole is a big organelle which is filled with a solution of mineral salts and carbohydrates and proteins and pigments also. And it has many functions, but one of the main functions is that it controls the osmotic pressure of the cell. How and how is it done? Why is it done? Will be discussed in the upcoming chapters. Then we have the cellulose cell wall, which is the outer boundary of a plant cell, which is fully permeable. It's a tough and rigid structure. It helps in keeping the plant cells intact. It gives them their particular shape and prevents them from bursting also. And another thing, we should not forget that a plant cell wall or the cellulose cell wall is the only part of the cell, specifically, of course, when we're talking about the plant cell, which is dead. So besides the cell wall, every other part of the plant cell is living. It's not dead. With that, we are done with the functions of plant organelles. And then now we will be moving on to the specialized cells, tissues, and organs unit, which is unit 1.2. In this, I will be dealing with the first learning outcome, and in a way I'll be touching on to the second learning outcome as well, which is we'll be understanding that cells can become specialized and that their structures are related to their specific functions as illustrated by examples covered in the syllabus. And we'll also understand the terms cell, tissue, organ system, and organisms as illustrated by examples covered in the syllabus. We won't be touching the third learning outcome, which is about using formulae and doing some calculations. So we won't be doing that today. So let's start. Before I start with covering these learning outcomes, I would like to ask some questions. And those questions are, what do you mean by a specialized cell? Why do even cells need to specialize? Right? You must have heard about a specialist doctor, a doctor which is a specialist of skin, like a dermatologist, a doctor which is a specialist of children diseases, a pediatrician, a doctor which is a specialist of heart diseases, a cardiologist. So in the same manner, in our body, cells are also specialized. So what do you mean by a specialized cell? Why do cells need to specialize? Or what if one cell is specialized to perform all functions? Why do we have different kinds of specialized cells in our body? Why is one cell completely different from other cell? Or why is the function of one cell completely different from the function of the other cells? Why don't we have just one single cell which can do all the functions of the body? What's the point of having trillions of cells in the body? Isn't it a hassle? Isn't it better to just have one single cell which can carry out its function? So in order to get answers to all these questions, we'll have to take a look. We'll have to go deep inside our body to see how the cells function in the real world scenario. Now listen, students. Our body, especially when we talk about ourselves, human beings, we are a complex multicellular organism or a living thing. We perform functions ranging from thinking to sleeping to eating to doing a job, running, working, talking, laughing, so many things, right? So in order to perform so many different functions, we can't expect one single cell to do that. What will happen actually inside our body will be that a time will come when that one single cell will be completely exhausted and it will burn out and stop doing the work which it had to do. The same happens in our real life scenarios. Don't we always divide the work as far as a household work is concerned? There are some people who are in charge of earning a living. There are some people who are in charge of doing the housekeeping, then we do have some house help also in our houses. There are some small errands which the children do. So if all this work, different kind of work, is not distributed within different members of a household or on a large scale within different members of a society, the result that will happen will be that if one person is doing all the work, then he'll become exhausted. So the same thing applies to our body. Cells need to be specialized because every specialized cell is doing a special job. Every specialized cell has a distinct shape. And in order to do a special function, since they want to do a special function, special kinds of chemical reactions take place inside their cytoplasm to make them specialized. Let's have a look at this slide. This slide shows you some of the specialized cells inside your body, not all of them. Of course, it's beyond the scope of this lecture that I'm doing right now and my presentation as well to give you an example or to show you diagrams of each and every specialized cell of your body. But just to give you an idea, I'll be zooming also into this diagram. Look at this cell. We all know that our muscle cells, they contract, right? So the muscle cells are contracting and relaxing because that's their job. If they don't contract and relax, we won't be able to move our body, right? Then there are some cells inside your respiratory system, inside your breathing passages, and those cells enable you to breathe, and they enable dust particles to be eliminated from your body. They help you to clean your airways. They provide you oxygen. So hence, such kind of cells, they need a special shape and they need a special function. Similarly, there are some cells which are found in your intestine, which means in your digestive system, whose job is to absorb the digested products. So in order for them to absorb those products, they should have some specialized structures like these. I won't be going into the details of it. I'm just giving you examples. Then there are other cells which are cells which make up your joints and the cells which make up your trachea. And they are known as cartilage cells. Cartilage cells give strength to your trachea so that the trachea or your windpipe does not collapse and you keep on breathing. Similarly, the cartilage cells inside your joints enable your joints to move freely without any pain so that they are flexible and you can bend your knees and you can bend your elbows, right? And then let me give you some other examples of specialized cells. A red blood cell is a specialized cell. In fact, I don't have a red blood cell over here in this diagram. Yes, another specialized cell, a neuron. The job of the neuron is we have millions and millions and trillions of neurons in our nervous system, in our brain, and their job is to receive and send impulses to different parts of your body. If you don't have any neuron, you won't be able to think, you won't be able to move. Your neurons are controlling the rest of the body. So a neuron should look like this. Let me draw a red blood cell. Now this is a red blood cell. Okay. And a red blood cell is a special cell in that it doesn't have a nucleus. I'm just drawing this dotted inside to give it a little bit 3D effect. So these are your red blood cells. Okay. And you have, I think, 3.5 to 4.5 millions of these red blood cells, millions of red blood cells per cubic millimeter of your blood. So their job is to carry oxygen inside your body. If you don't have red blood cells, there'll be nothing to carry oxygen inside your body. So they need to have a special shape and a special size and some special features to carry out that job, right? Similarly, if you remember when I was doing plant cells with you, I had shown you a mesophyll cell. Let's go back and show you the same mesophyll cell so that you can make a connection. This is how a mesophyll cell looks like. It is found inside a leaf. Its job is to trap the sunlight and carry out photosynthesis. And it can do so because of the presence of lots of these chloroplasts. It needs to have a special shape, it needs to have special structures. Only then it will be able to carry out those special functions. So this means I can say with confidence that a mesophyll cell is also a specialized cell. So this means that we need to have these different kinds of specialized cells, each having a separate shape, a separate function, and separate kinds of chemical reactions taking place inside them, so that different kinds of functions can be carried out smoothly and efficiently inside your body. If we want our body to function smoothly and efficiently without tiring ourselves, okay, without one cell being burdened out by carrying out so many different functions, we have to have these specialized cells. And it is only because of the presence of these specialized cells that these specialized cells will join together to form an organ. For example, I would say that stomach is an organ, right? All of us know that we put our food inside the stomach. So the very reason that we have this organ and the very reason that this organ can function effectively is that it is a combination of different kinds of tissues. A stomach has a nervous tissue, which is why when our stomach is empty, we have a feeling of hunger, and that feeling is because of the nervous tissue inside the stomach, which has connections with our brain. Similarly, the stomach also has blood vessels, of course, because it is those blood vessels that will supply oxygen to the stomach, without which the stomach cells will die. Similarly, the stomach organ also has specialized stomach cells whose job is to digest the food that we are eating. So those are specialized glandular cells of the stomach. So had there been no different kinds of these tissues, there would not have been any organ inside your body. So it is actually all these different tissues combining to form an organ so that they can perform a special function. Just like stomach is an organ and intestine is also an organ, intestine is also a combination of different tissues working together. Similarly, lungs are also organs which which are made up of different tissues which are working together to perform a special function, right? So we need to have these specialized cells. If there were no specialized cells, our body would not have been able to perform so many different functions at the same time. Let me show you some textbook pictures of specialized cells within your body. For example, here on the screen, you can see cilia or ciliated cells. These cells or ciliated cells, they form the lining of the nose and the windpipe. And the tiny hairs that you can see on the top, which are known as cilia, they are continuously moving in a rhythmic movement or a continual flicking movement like this. You can see these are the cilia and they are moving like this, to and fro, forwards and backwards. So by their continual flicking movement, it creates a stream of fluid or mucus that carries dust and bacteria through the bronchi and trachea away from the lungs. So basically what that means is that since these cells are lining your nose and windpipe, and since all the time we are breathing through our nose and our windpipe, so it has to be that when we are breathing in, we will breathe in the dirt particles also with the air. So our respiratory system or our breathing system needs to get rid of these dirt particles. So how will it get rid of these? By means of these special cells, which are the ciliated epithelial cells. These cilia will just behave as very tiny microscopic brooms, just as a broom cleans the dirt of your room. Similarly, these are the microscopic brooms that rid your respiratory system of the smoke, dust particle, and other pollutants. Another example is that of a root hair cell. A root hair cell is also a specialized cell that is found within the roots, below the level of the soil, deep down inside the soil. As the name indicates, its job is to absorb water from the soil. So since it has to absorb water and mineral salts from the soil, it needs to have these processes or these projections. You can see this is a projection and this is the cell. Okay, so this cell has a projection like this. Why does it need to have a projection? So that it can absorb water and mineral salts from the soil. And this projection penetrates between the soil particles and it gives a large absorbing surface to the root hair cell, right? So again, a root hair cell is a specialized plant cell. Just like a ciliated cell is a specialized animal cell found in the nose and the windpipe, just like the red blood cell is a specialized animal cell, similarly, the root hair cell is a specialized plant cell. Let me show you some other diagram. This diagram is also taken from your textbook. So this is your, I'm zooming into it, the diagram of a neuron, right? You can see the neurons look very different from all the other cells because their job is to carry and send electrical impulses to different parts of the body, right? Let me just read a bit about neurons from your textbook. These cells are specialized for conducting electrical impulses along them to and from the brain and spinal cord. So that's why, they have shapes like these. Then we have a sperm cell. Okay, a sperm cell is the male reproductive cell, okay, or the male sex cells, and their job is to fuse with the female cell or the egg cell and to produce the zygote, which will become the future baby. We will be doing the details about this when we are doing the reproductive system. But just to give you an idea how the sperm cell looks like, and also to give you an exposure about how different specialized cells can look like, I'm showing you the diagram of the sperm cell. So they are male sex cells. The front of the cell is oval shaped. It contains a nucleus, you can see, which carries genetic information, right? And it has a middle piece, it has a tail for movement because it has to move inside the body of the female so that it can fuse with the egg or the ovum. This picture is again another specialized cell which is known as the egg cells. Egg cells are usually larger than sperm cells. They are spherical in shape. They have a very large amount of cytoplasm. The nucleus is more or less lying in the center, right? And the nucleus, just like the nucleus of the sperm cell, this also carries genetic information. All human beings are the result of fusion of a sperm cell and an egg cell. It's actually the combination of the nucleus or the DNA of the sperm cell and the DNA of the egg cell that makes a zygote, and the zygote will then become a future baby, and the baby grows into an adult. So what we are is actually a combination of DNA from our father and from our mother. We get the sperm from our father, right? And the ovum from our mother. So it's a fusion of these two cells, two reproductive cells, that results in the formation of a zygote. Again, reminding you that a sperm cell and an egg cell both are examples of specialized cells. So I'll end my lesson today. See you next time, inshallah. Allah Hafiz.